this was supposed to be a casual video and I have like no idea what to talk about. I was going to talk about discipline and punishment because like a long time ago on Instagram I wrote a comment somewhere where I was like, oh, discipline and punishment aren't the same thing. Like discipline has to do with routine and punishment is punishment. And guess who I learned that from? I learned that from Caesar Milan when he was like teaching a bunch of middle-aged white people how to like train their dogs. He was talking about the difference between discipline and punishment, and that shit changed my life. So basically, you know, you should focus on like routine and habits rather than punishing yourself every time you don't accomplish a goal. And this punishment can come in like so many different forms. This could come in like beating yourself up in thought, like you sitting there being like, oh my god, I'm such a loser, I'm such a bad person, like I don't get what I need to do get done, like it's never enough. That's punishing yourself. And I think that comes from like the way we were raised. We were kind of raised in a way where our parents didn't, like when I look at my parents, when I look at the adults in my life, I either have adults who lacked discipline or who had discipline but lacked direction. You know, their direction was like driving them towards like very capitalistic and cultural based desires, like desires that society put on them, rather than like really asking themselves what they truly wanted in this life. And I think having the space and time to do that is a privilege, but you know, that privilege isn't always born in wealth. I think you don't have to be wealthy to have the space and time to figure out what you want, because I think, you know, that's actually like if you're, you know, early in the stages of trying to be intentional about your life, I think figuring out what you really want is important. And personally, like what I wanted has been like, it has changed so much. I think the more you learn, you're going to realize your wants and desires shift and transform. And sometimes you'll realize that like, oh, like what I wanted back then isn't what I want now. And my desires are going to shift and change. And I think there are going to be some desires that stay true to you. And I don't know. I guess like I've always had this like weird view that like you need to be extremely disciplined in order to accomplish everything that you want. I don't think that's true. I think self-image is probably the biggest role. Like your identity, how you see yourself, how you perceive yourself, I think plays the biggest role in how your habits and behavior play out. And the problem with punishment is I think the more we punish ourselves, the more we like break that self-image we have. The more we bully ourselves into like, we think that bullying ourselves is gonna help us get to where we want to go, and that's not true. I don't think that's going to help us. I think what's going to help us is like looking for optimal growth. And what do I mean by optimal growth? What's the next right step for you? You know what I'm saying? Like what, being hard on yourself, punishing yourself, shaming yourself about, you know, being a bad person. These are all things that are just, you know, it's just society and the culture and probably your parents. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're sitting there feeling bad about who you are, feeling shitty, it's society and culture. And some of these, I think some people on the internet will tell you like, you have to feel shitty in order to understand that you are at your worst, and when you're at your worst you can understand what it takes to get to your best. Shut up. Okay, I am here to push that aside. What the evil stepfather energy. I'm gonna give you a warm mama bear hug and tell you that it's all gonna be okay. Am I looking at the camera right now? I feel like I haven't not been looking at the camera the entire time. I'm gonna give you a virtual hug. I'm not. I feel uncomfortable, but still, mental hug. Because you don't need to like be that harsh on yourself, and I think that's gonna rubber band you back. It's so important to like look for optimal growth. What's sustainable? What do you see yourself doing every fucking day? And sometimes there are going to be some things that you might have to push yourself to do, but you'll learn that like you'll understand where, like, you know, how far you can push yourself, how far you can encourage yourself before you rubber band back. And I think that's just a learning process. That's trial and error. This video came out more serious than I thought. But yeah, I was like, I guess my intention was to talk about discipline and punishment. And I guess that's what I ended up doing. Yeah, this is a great time to like, okay, I have this posted on my wall. That, depending on who you are, that could easily make you feel very shitty about yourself. I will always mention, because I am so for improving yourself, wanting to like improve your life, wanting to like be the best you can be. That's important, but you have to like love and accept yourself for who you are every step of the way, because it is not like hating yourself while you're trying to accomplish these goals is just going to breed more hate and resentment, because you're not figuring out the root of that hate and resentment. You're not figuring out like where is this anger coming from? Where are these emotions coming from? What's happening inside of me? Like why, I feel like the more you're going to realize there's a lot of like tangible things that this, you're going to want from this world, and those tangible things will never ever fill the void of like the inside of what's happening on the inside, and that's like a journey. Totally recommend a little marijuana. Seriously, I as much as like I am like shamed for smoking weed, I don't really drink. Like it's kind of like weed is kind of like my vice of choice. I don't really like, I'm not really, not that I don't mind a good party, you know what I'm saying, but my consumption fluctuates, but I'm definitely not like fried all the time. There are times where I'm fried all the time, but that like depends on like what I'm trying to get done. I don't know. I hate how there's this like weird thing around. I feel like I'm getting a lot done. I'm just like in a weird position, but I feel like I think a lot of people still have this weird relationship with weed and success, and I think that's because of like, I think that's the culture. I think that's like, that comes from like anti-blackness. I'm pretty sure that like weed makes you like lazy, and like that's like, there's like some deep shit going on there. There's a lot of people in color in jail for this shit. The I don't think anyone should feel ashamed. I think it should be treated like wine, in my opinion. And I think a lot of the stigma comes from racism. Obviously, I'm a brown girl. I will never understand, I will never, ever, ever, ever understand how bad it is, right? But I do think the stigma around weed comes from anti-blackness. And I think it's not like I try not to talk about race, but I try not to talk about like, there's certain topics that I feel like it just wouldn't look good coming from me. Even right now, me mentioning anti-blackness, I realize like as like a middle light-skinned brown girl, a Tamil girl, it doesn't seem, I don't want to say it doesn't seem like, not that I'm trying to stay away from topics around race, but I don't want to talk about things that are like outside of my lane. You know what I'm saying? Because like I'm not qualified. Like I just want to mention that like it's important for me to speak about the barriers that people are facing, but also I can't talk about as if like I face those exact same barriers. Does that make sense? Like I'm also like, I'm facing barriers, but not the same barriers. And I realize how important it is for me to talk about those barriers because of the privileges I have, but I also don't want to stray out of my lane and act like I know everything. Even though I feel like a lot of people think I do act like I know everything. But anyways. Yeah,